Hello and welcome to the first in this year's series of GSA Snapshot Webinars. At the end of last year, global agreement was reached by governments and regulators at WRC-23 on the future of 5G and 6G spectrum. In today's Snapshot webinar, we'll share a readout on the outcome of IMT agenda items from WRC-23 and the agenda items for IMT and mobile satellite services at WRC-27. In the coming weeks, GSA will also publish a full report on the outcomes, so today you're really getting a first look at the key points. First, a little bit of housekeeping before we dive into the events. We're joined by Wang Hu from the GSA Spectrum Group, who will run us through the outcomes, and by Joe Barrett, President of GSA. If, as we go through the presentation, you have any questions on points around which you'd like some clarification, please do submit your questions using the Q&A function on the sidebar. Please do pose any questions you have as we go through, and then Joe will be taking these and asking as many questions as possible to who, as we have time for at the end. The on-demand recording of the session will be shared with you immediately following the event, and you can also download the presentation at any point by moving your mouse over the slides and clicking on the download icon in the top right of the screen. We will also share a link to the full GSA report directly with you when it is published in the near future. Let's get things started. I'll now hand over to Hu to run through the outcomes. Hu.
Thank you, Richard, for the introduction. Good day to everyone. My name is Wang Hu from Huawei Technologies. So many of us attended the WRC-23 at the end of last year in Dubai. Overall speaking, the conference has delivered very good results to IMT. We think it was a very successful conference. So after the conference, the GSA Spectrum Group, we looked at the provisional final acts and the WRC documents. We developed this summary of WRC outcomes and focusing on the agenda item for IMT. So the summary of the outcome is organized by frequency bands. I will go through them one by one. I will also address the decision on Article 21.5, which is mainly related to the 26 gigahertz millimeter wave frequency bands. We also provide a summary of WRC-27 agenda item for IMT and for mobile satellite service, which are closely related to some of the terrestrial IMT frequency bands. So starting from the 470 to 694 megahertz. So this is agenda 1.5 for region 1. It was one of the most difficult items of WRC-23. The agreement for this item was reached probably at the very end of the conference. It was the last agenda item that the plenary discussed and approved. So for 11 Arab countries, the frequency band 614 to 694 megahertz was allocated to mobile service on primary basis, except aeronautical mobile. It was also identified for IMT. For 43 European countries and Uzbekistan, the frequency band 470 to 694 megahertz was allocated to mobile service on a secondary basis, except aeronautical mobile. It was a small but very important step. In addition, a preliminary WRC-31 agenda item was agreed upon to review these bands to consider possible regulatory actions, including mobile allocation in 614 to 694 megahertz for those countries. For 8 African countries, 614 to 694 was allocated to mobile service on secondary basis. This decision provides them flexibility to consider IMT deployments in these bands. At the end of the conference, we have in total 9 Asia-Pacific countries, 10 American countries, and 11 Arab countries identified 600 megahertz for IMT. It is a good momentum for IMT developments in this band in all the 3 regions. And for the band 3300 to 3400 megahertz under Agenda 1.2, so before the conference, this band was already identified for IMT in some countries, and decision was made at WRC-15. So from this conference, in region 1, 15 African countries and Palestine, they joined the footnotes on 5.429A for mobile allocation, except aeronautical mobile. Djibouti, Mongolia, Palestine, and Somalia, they joined the footnotes on 5.429 for mobile allocation. and 15 African countries and Mongolia. They joined the footnotes on 5.429b for IMT identification of this band. Please note the two lists are slightly different. So for region 2, this band was allocated to mobile, except aeronautical mobile service, and it was identified for IMT for the whole region. For region 3, 5 countries joined mobile service allocation, and Singapore joined the footnotes of IMT identification. So at the end of the conference, in region 1 and 3, we have in total 49 African countries and 8 Asia-Pacific countries that identify the bands for IMT. And we also have a region 2, the whole region, that identifies this band for IMT. So next bands, 3.6 to 3.8 gigahertz under Agenda 1.2 for region 2 and under Agenda 1.3 for region 1. So this band was allocated to mobile service on a primary basis, except aeronautical mobile, for the whole region 1. For African and Arab regions, except 6 Africa countries. So this band was identified for IMT. And for the 6 African countries, 3.6 to 3.7 gigahertz was identified for IMT, and 3.7 to 3.8 gigahertz was allocated to mobile service on a secondary basis. For region 2, 3.6 to 3.7 was identified for IMT for the whole region, and 3.7 to 3.8 was identified in 15 countries and territories. So these are the outcomes for 3.6 to 3.8 gigahertz from the conference. I'd like to draw your attention that this band has already been used for 5G in Europe and in some region 3 countries. So there is a clearly great momentum for IMT developments in this band, in particular in region 1 and in region 2. For the band 4.8 to 4.99 gigahertz under Agenda 1.1, this is actually another complex and difficult item. So at the conference, there were a number of regions and countries that expressed strong support to IMT in this band. Africa, RCC from region 1, China, Vietnam from region 3, and Brazil, Mexico from region 2, just to name a few. So the conference decision on this agenda item was no change. The outcome was due to diverging views of IMT sector and the AMS and MMS sector with regard to the necessity of a PFD criteria to protect AMS and MMS, its value of the PFD, conditions, and the frequency band for its application. So some of the coastal African countries decided to remove their names from the IMT footnote 5.441b. Several new IMT supporting countries, they initially requested to be added to the footnote, but finally decided not to join the footnote. So some countries, they joined the footnotes because this is the requirement at national level for licensing this band for IMT in their countries. At the end of the conference, multiple countries that either removed their country name from 5.441b or they support IMT but did not join the footnotes. They made statements to the closing plenary to reserve their right to implement IMT systems in this band in their countries. I think that's the industry. We will continue work with those countries to find out some way forward for IMT deployments in this band. I will to move to next one, that is 6425 to 7125 megahertz. This is under Agenda 1.2. This is another very important IMT frequency band. So for region 1, the outcome from the conference is that this band, 6425 to 7125 megahertz, was identified for IMT for the whole region. For region 2, the band 6425 to 7125 megahertz was identified for IMT in Brazil and Mexico. For region 3, 6425 to 7025 megahertz was identified for IMT in 3 countries, and 7025 to 7125 megahertz was identified for region 3, the whole region. The conference also decided the harmonized technical conditions across all 3 regions for protecting fixed satellite services. the Earth to space link. So it is the limits on EIRP spectral density of IMT base stations in the vertical angle range from 0 degree to 90 degrees. So these technical conditions, they give protection of fixed satellite service, and they are not overly restricting the deployments of macro-cellular IMT base stations. This band has attracted a lot of interest in the last study cycle, as well as at the conference. So what I can see now is that the WRC-23 decision was a very good decision, a very positive to IMT deployment in this band. Let's move to the next one. That is the frequency band, 10 to 10.5 gigahertz. This band was identified for IMT in 12 Latin American countries. We need to know that the use of this frequency band for IMT is only intended for microcell base stations. So the conditions specified for IMT identification in this band includes maximal EIRP, antenna pointing direction, and out-of-band emission limits for base stations and for user equipment. I'm moving to next one. That is Article 21.5 of the radio regulations. It is basically about some protection of space service, which when terrestrial and space services sharing a frequency band. So study of this issue was very difficult in the last cycle. However, fortunately, WRC-23 made a conclusion on this issue. To me, this was a surprise, but it was a very good surprise. So WRC-23 decided no change to Article 21.5. It was agreed to update the table 21-2 with regard to frequency band 24.45 to 29.5 gigahertz, and to add a description of total radiated power under item 8AA in Appendix 4, without limiting the reference bandwidth of the base stations notified by administrations to ITUR. So the conference agreed not to add any additional regulatory restriction to IMT systems in the 26 gigahertz band. Yeah, this is very good. Now I move to the WRC-27 agenda items for IMT and MSS. So agenda 1.7, this is to consider IMT identification in 4 gigahertz, in 7 to 8 gigahertz and 15 gigahertz bands. So to consider studies on sharing and compatibility and develop technical conditions for the use of IMT in the frequency band 4400 to 4800 megahertz, 7125 to 8400 megahertz, and 14.8 to 15.35 gigahertz, taking into account existing primary services operating in this and adjacent frequency bands. As you may know, that ITUR is also working on developments of IMT 2030, the 6G. The agenda 1.7 will be very important for future development of IMT, in particular the IMT 2030. GSA has made a lot of contributions to establishment of this agenda item. It's going to be the most important work item for mobile industry in this study cycle and also at the WRC-27. So I will from now on I will address 3 agenda items about some mobile satellite service. So agenda 1.13, this is about mobile satellite service on IMT. I need to clarify that GSA does not have a position, not yet, a position on this agenda item, and also another 2 agenda items about some mobile satellite service. Our intention actually is to draw your attention that there are mobile satellite service agenda items that also touch some of the terrestrial IMT frequency bands. So in principle, that's the IMT sector and also ITUR Working Party 5D. We will follow these agenda items on MSS. And so definitely we were looking for protection of the terrestrial IMT networks. So agenda 1.13, this is to consider studies on possible new allocation to the mobile satellite service for direct connectivity between satellites and international IMT user equipments to complement terrestrial IMT network coverage. Actually, the frequency bands to be studied, to be considered for this agenda item is between 694, 698 megahertz and the 2.7 gigahertz. It's quite a wide range. You may know that the work has already started in the past Working Party 5D meeting. Yeah. I will move to the next one. That is agenda 1.12. This is another MSS agenda item. It is for no data rates, non-NGSO MSS. The frequency band are listed here, and so definitely some of them, or many of them, some of them, they overlaps with the terrestrial IMT frequency bands. And agenda 1.14. This is for to consider MSS allocation. This is actually a conventional MSS mobile satellite service. They are looking at some frequency bands, and they are one important frequency bands for terrestrial IMT systems. So this is actually the last slides for my presentation. I think next that's we will have a Q&A session. Yeah. Richard. Yep.
Yeah, Joe, I'll turn it over to you to run through some of the questions we've got.
Okay, thank you, Richard, and thank you, Hu, for that summary. There's been quite a lot of questions coming through. One of them was about Wi-Fi and 6 gigahertz, but I think that we are only talking about IMT outcomes from the WRC-23. That's correct, isn't it, Hu? Okay, let me have a quick look. So that there was a question regarding the availability of different bands being deployed as part of IMT. You mentioned that there are some bands already being deployed for 5G. Is there a view that we have about when some of these new bands could become available regionally?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yeah, I think that for WRC, the objective is looking for global harmonization. But given that definitely there are incumbent services, other applications in some of the band, or let's say all of the bands. So as for some cases, regional harmonization is also a good achievement. So definitely the answer is yes. For some of the bands, we will start from some regions.
Okay, thank you. There's also a clarification. Could you explain the difference between mobile service allocation and the IMT identification of a band?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So actually, the radio regulations, they are organized that every frequency, every spectrum, every frequency bands is allocated to one or a few services, radio services, and mobile service is one of the many services. IMT is an application of mobile services. And in addition to IMT, there are other mobile applications of mobile service. Actually, identification of the frequency band to IMT, this from WRC perspective, this set a direction for future developments of this frequency band. But it does not mean that all the countries they should deploy IMT at the same time. Definitely, it's still a national decision how to use these bands. How to use this band for mobile service applications, including IMT.
Okay, thank you. There was a question in Europe and I know you're based in Asia, but is there does the Spectrum Group have any indication of when 600 megahertz may be allocated in Europe for 5G or even 6G?
I guess the question is about some 6 gigahertz for Europe. Am I right?
600 megahertz.
Oh, 600 megahertz for now. My understanding that Europe has made a decision to allocate this 600 megahertz for secondary basis mobile service. This is one step forward, but the decision, from my perspective, would be made at some WRC-31. It's a bit late, but it's unfortunate. It's a fact. So for Europe, I guess we would expect some IMT deployments after the WRC-31 decision. There is already a preliminary agenda item for Europe. For other countries, for other regions, like Arab countries and some of the African countries, they have made some progress. I think that some 600 megahertz we will see early progress in these countries, this region. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Hugh. So we are coming towards the end of this, and there's been a few questions that we've not been able to get to. So thank you, Hugh, for that. And now if we look at just generally, well, first of all, I just want to comment on the GSA Spectrum Group that has been operating now for just over 8 years, doing WRC-19, WRC-23, and are now working towards WRC-27, as who mentioned. They've done a great job. There is around over 185 participants from our member companies. So they've been working regionally for a long time. So that's been an excellent outcome, and they do a great job in the industry. And there are other areas in GSA, not just the reports and the databases that we're maintaining, but we have a very successful fixed wireless access forum with close to 60 members now, a private mobile networks group that is gaining members and interest in the industry, and we continue to grow associate subscribers who get access to all our data, so they can use that internally as well. And so we cover lots of areas. There's lots of industry reports. Many of them are free in summary basis for you. So please go to the website and get access to those reports and databases where you do have access. So thank you for that. I'll pass you back to Richard, who will just close off for today.
Great, thanks, Joe. And I will close today by once again thanking you all for joining and for thanking our speakers today. After the event, you will receive a link to the webinar recording and to the slides. As we mentioned, we will be publishing a more detailed report on the outcomes from WRC-23 in the coming days and weeks, and as soon as that is live on the GSA website, we will share that with you directly as well. Our next event will be a regional focus on the status of all things 5G in the Americas region. During this event, our research team will share the latest data, and we'll also be joined by senior regulators from LATAM who will share their perspectives on the main challenges and opportunities in the region. Further details on this event will be shared on the GSA website in the near future. Access to detailed data that lies behind all the GSA reports and webinars is available to all employees of GSA member and associate organisations via the GSA website. And if you'd like more information on how your organisation can get involved in the GSA and access the extensive global Gambod database, please do get in touch. For the latest updates on GSA research activities and upcoming events, please do follow us on our social channels, which you see there on the screen. And if you visit gsacom.com, you can also subscribe to our weekly Research Digest email so that you get updates on the latest reports delivered direct into your inbox. So on behalf of the GSA team, just remains for me to say thank you again for joining us, and we hope to see you again at the next GSA event. Many thanks.